The Carolina Panthers last season went 5-12, but the second half of the season was quite promising as they won 4 of their last 9 games, and Bryce Young was amazing in the second half of the year after looking like an all-time bust in the first half. They had a pretty good offseason, and because of all of this, I think the Panthers in 2025 will contend for a playoff spot, and they might make it, which is what I'm going to go over in today's video. Now before we do get started, of course, go ahead and hit that like button if you guys end up enjoying the video since it really helps out the channel. And of course, subscribe if you guys are new and you guys enjoy content like this. That way you don't miss out on any new videos like the one you're watching right now. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get things started. Let's start by discussing their offense. Now statistically, the Panthers offense last year wasn't that good as they were only the 23rd best offense, 30th in passing offense, 18th in rushing offense, 23rd in points per game, 26th in third down percentage, 22nd in points per drive, and they were below average in most efficiency stats. But a lot of these numbers were swayed by how bad they were in the first 8 games. In Carolina's offense from week 9 to 18, it was much better. Bryce Young was easily the biggest reason for this improvement because, as I alluded to before, he was terrible in the first half of the season to say the least. In fact, he was so bad that he got benched after only 2 weeks, and he was genuinely looking like one of the worst quarterbacks I had ever seen. I mean, there was absolutely nothing good about him, and he looked too scared to even push the ball somewhat down the field. In the 3 games that he started from weeks 1 to 8, he only compiled 469 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 5 picks while being extremely inefficient, and it led to the Panthers' offense just being unwatchable. But from week 9 and onward, he looked like a completely different player as he was actually accurate with the ball, was much smarter, way better under pressure. He wasn't scared to push the ball down the field and throw more checkdowns, and because of that, the Panthers' offense, well, it was actually good. From weeks 9 to 18, he threw for 1,880 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, only 4 picks, he rushed for 217 yards and 5 TDs, and he was kind of efficient as well. Plus, Bryce Young also did end the year with 27 big-time throws and only 12 turnover-worthy plays, according to PFF. I don't think Bryce Young is a top 5 quarterback or anything like that right now, and I'll admit, I don't think he has the ceiling of an elite quarterback, largely because his physical tools are just okay. But he was still really good in the second half of 2024. And in my opinion, he does have a pretty good ceiling, and I could see him being like a top 10 quarterback in the future if he were to reach his ceiling. Now, I think 2025 is a make or break year for Bryce, and we need to see him play like how he did in the second half of last year, or even better than that, for pretty much all of 2025. But if he can do just that, then I think he will solidify himself as the Panthers franchise QB. And it does help that the supporting cast around Bryce isn't that bad, which should help him break out. Their wide receiving core, it is pretty promising as they drafted Teteroya McMillan from Arizona in this year's NFL draft, and I loved him as a prospect. I think he should give Bryce Young a number 1 wide receiver who has really good size, movement skills, he has really good hands, he's a solid route runner, and he's a good deep threat and yak threat. The Panthers also do have Xavier Legette, who had an okay rookie season. He did show some flashes, but he also did have some drop issues, but I think those drop issues can be improved upon, and the potential is there. I liked Xavier Legette as a prospect coming out of South Carolina, and I do think he will be a really good player in the NFL as long as he can clean up those drops. They also do have Adam Thielen, who is old and he's not in his prime anymore, but he's still a solid wide receiver. Plus, Jalen Cocker was not that bad for them last season, and I think he should serve as a good depth receiver. The Panthers also do have Ja'Tavion Sanders at tight end, and he had a pretty decent rookie season, and I do think he should be a pretty good receiving tight end moving forward. The Panthers also do have a really good running back duo in Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. Chuba Hubbard, in my honest opinion, is one of the most underrated players in the league, as last season he had 1,195 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns while averaging 4.8 yards an attempt. Meanwhile, Rico Dowdle, last season he had 1,079 rushing yards and he only had 2 rushing touchdowns, but he did average 4.6 yards an attempt and overall is not that bad of a running back. Now, the Panthers' offensive line last season, it was okay, as they were 10th in run block win rate, but they were also 30th in pass block win rate. Ike Ekwonu and Taylor Moton, they're both good tackles, and their interior is pretty solid as well, as they got guys like Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, and Austin Corbett, all of whom are solid players. Carolina's offensive line overall, it's not an elite unit, but it's not a trash unit either, and I do think it is pretty solid. And as long as Bryce Young does play well, the Panthers offense, it should be pretty good. Now we move on to the Panthers defense, and it was ass to say the least. Now Derrick Brown, he was out for virtually the whole year, which did not help at all, but the Panthers were historically bad on defense, which is pretty unacceptable. They ranked 32nd in team defense, 23rd in passing defense, 32nd in run defense, last in points per game, last in third down defense, 29th in red zone percentage, and they ranked horribly in various efficiency stats like EPA per play, and success rate. Now the Panthers, they did have some good players on that side of the ball, like Derrick Brown, who I said earlier, and J.C. Horn. And I do think Ejiro Evero, their defensive coordinator, I don't think he's that bad, despite how bad Carolina's defense was in 2024. But the Panthers did make some reinforcements to their defenses. They made some nice free agent signings like Trayvon Moehrig, Tershawn Wharton, and Patrick Jones. And in the draft, they acquired guys like Nick Scourton and Princely Umanamalain to help bolster this defensive line. And I like both of those guys, coming out of Texas A&M and Ole Miss, respectfully. The Panthers defense, in my opinion, it's far from an elite unit, but I do think that as long as they remain mostly healthy, they could be a passable unit. And as far as Dave Canales goes as a head coach, I thought he was okay in his first year. Now, he was mostly brought in to be a QB whisperer in hopes that he could help Bryce Young, break out. And obviously, it got off to a really bad start, but eventually things did start to look promising when Bryce bounced back. And I think we will get a better read on how good he is as a head coach this upcoming season. But so far, he's not the worst. He really just needs to get Bryce Young, to break out and reach his potential, because if he can do that, then I think he is the answer at head coach. But honestly, if Bryce Young can break out in 2025, I think the Carolina Panthers will have one of the better offenses in the league, and as long as their defense is passable, the Panthers should be a solid team, and they should be a lot better than they were last season. The NFC compared to the AFC, it's a lot weaker, and along with that, they have the luxury of playing in the NFC South, which is one of the weakest divisions in the whole league. Now, the Buccaneers, they're obviously a really good team, but then you got the Falcons, who I think they're okay, but I do have my doubts about them. And then the Saints, well, they're arguably the worst team in the league. And when you look at the Panthers' schedule, I think they are going to win like 2 to 4 of their divisional games. Then they play the NFC West, and I think they'll win like 1 to 2 of those games. Afterwards, you do play the AFC East, and I think you also win, 1 to 2 of those games. And their last 3 games come against the Cowboys, Packers, and Jaguars. And I think the Panthers are going to win, they could win none of those games if, they reach their floor. But they also could win 2 of those games if they were to reach their ceiling. And the Panthers, they could very well suck. And, if Bryce Young goes back to being trash, and if this defense continues to be really, really bad. But as I said before, if Bryce Young and this defense improves, then the Panthers, they should be a solid team, and I think they could win as much as 10 games. Now, me personally, I think the Panthers are going to win like 7 to 9 games, and I think they will be in the playoff mix, and if they get lucky enough, they could make it into the playoffs, or maybe even win the NFC South. I do think Bryce Young is going to have a really good season in 2025, and I do think their defense will be better than it was last season, but even though I do have a lot of faith in Bryce Young, and I think, again, their defense will be a lot better than it was last season, I don't know if their defense is going to be a great unit. And at the end of the day, Carolina, while they are a solid team, I don't think they are amazing. But either way, 7 to 9 wins and being in the playoff mix or making it into the playoffs, that would be really good progress for the Carolina Panthers when you consider how bad they've been, in the last 2 years. But that's all I gotta say for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot to me. Again, make sure you guys like and subscribe, and check me out on social media. The links to my Twitter and Instagram are in the description below. But without further ado, I'm out, you guys.